Chapter 205, The Desperate Ambush. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Chankiki was in the medium state of the Earth Realm. He was a two uniquenesses genius who could hold his own against a warrior in the completion of the Earth Realm. His broadsword technique was very powerful and courageous, like being guarded by the god of lightning. Hu Qingshan smiled coldly with one hand behind him and the other stretching out quickly. He flipped on the back of the blade, making a sharp metal sound. Bang! Rings of power ripples spread out on the Chankiki's sword. The blade shook fiercely, nearly breaking Chankiki's fingers. Chankiki stepped to his right and retreated for over 10 feet. After coming to a stop, his eyes grew large as he stared at Hu Qingshan. He said, "I didn't know such a strong warrior was among the young generation of the black market." "Are you Hu Qingshan, the young lord of Poisonous Spider?" "Haha. You're rather good at recognizing people," called Hu Qingshan. Chankiki's face was drawn. He said disconsolately, "What bad luck to meet you." Zuo Sheng's face also turned pale. He didn't expect the man in front of him to be the famous young lord of Poisonous Spider. Although the young lord of Poisonous Spider was only in the final state of the Earth Realm, he was not much weaker than the warriors on the Earth board. Everyone expected the young lord of Poisonous Spider to earn a place on the Earth board as soon as he reached the completion of the Earth Realm. Although Chankiki and Zuo Sheng were both masters in the Internal Academy, it was hard for them to even block the young lord of Poisonous Spider's 3 movements. Chankiki and Zuo Sheng exchanged a look and immediately ran away in 2 directions. "Do you really think you can get away since you are here?" Hu Qingshan sneered and took out a 1 foot 3 inches machete. She unleashed the genuine chi from her fingertip and attacked Ziqian's sword. The machete glowed like an asteroid and flew from Hu Qingshan's hand. It curved through the air and came right towards Zuo Sheng. Zuo Sheng was a master in the dawn state of the Earth Realm. His skill had enabled him to quickly put 20 yards between himself and Hu Qingshan. He had almost left the court, when, shunk. The head of the guard had been torn apart from the body and blood clashed to 3 meters high from the neck. With a loud noise, the body and the head fell on the ground at the same time. The machete boomeranged through the air and back to Hu Qingshan's hand. Swoosh! Hu Qingshan hurled out his machete again, this time aiming for Chankiki's neck. Seeing Zuo Sheng being slaughtered, Chankiki made a strange cry. He suddenly turned around, jumped up and struck with his blade. Bam! Chankiki's blade blew the machete off far away, but he was blew into the air by the strong wallop as well. After falling on the ground, he started to run to the distance again. Not bad, Hu Qingshan conceded. He summoned the machete, performed the physical technique, and chased after Chankiki. The young lord of Poisonous Spider is indeed powerful. Perhaps even 10 iron hunchbacks are no match for him. After Hu Qingshan left, Zhang Yuochen strolled into the courtyard. Soon, he saw a pavilion covered by the inscription of a ray. He looked up and saw Huang Yanchen standing on the 2nd floor. Of course, Huang Yanchen had been watching the battle. She had wanted to rush out and help her classmates, but whenever she tried to get out of the pavilion, numerous arrays appeared to hold her back. But whenever she tried to get out, close and numerous arrays would appear in the boundary of the pavilion, making the power of thunderbolts that forced her back. Damn it! It grieved Huang Yanchen to see Zuo Sheng's decapitation. After all, he was killed trying to save her. Of course, she also knew that with her martial cultivation, she would not have been able to block even one of Hu Qingshan's techniques even if she had been able to join the fight. There are indeed too many masters in the black market. I underestimated them before. Huang Yanchen was the most favored one among all the commandery princesses, because she has the prettiest face and the highest talent. But she had never thought that she would become a prisoner one day. She knew very well the reason why the evil warriors in the black market didn't harm her until now. It was all because she was the Cayenne's Yui district princess. Huang Yanchen began to feel morose and dejected. Juan Muxingling and Zhang Yuochen had warned her in from the very first that the black market and the moon worship demonic sect were not ordinary evil forces. But she didn't pay attention. She thought that with the help of her martial cultivation and some survival skills, even the martial arts legends in the Heaven Realm could not imprison her. Just because she was too arrogant, She was plotted by the Tarantula Chamber of Commerce and became a prisoner. The return of Hu Qingshan carrying his bloody machete interrupted her thoughts. He looked angry. Standing straight, Huang Yanqun looked down at him, beautiful eyes flashing cold rage. She asked, "Have you killed Chang Kiki? He can't fight very well, but he's rather good at running away." He escaped. Hu Qingshan looked up at Princess Yanqun and was stunned by her beauty. He laughed and said, "How beautiful. I've heard that District Princess Yanqun has the beauty of a goddess and the grace of an angel. Today, I can see that your beauty in fact exceeds your reputation." Hu Qingshan stepped forward, passed right through the inscription of array, and walked up to the second floor. Dong, dong. The sound of footsteps came from the stairs. Huang Yanqun's eyes grew wide and her lips grew tight. She stared closely at the stairway. She still had much training to finish before she could hope to fight Hu Qingshan. What could I do right now? Hu Qingshan's footsteps came closer and closer. Huang Yanqun performed Shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon and turned herself into a shadow. She formed a shadow sword with her hand and pointed it at Hu Qingshan. Hu Qingshan stood firmly at where he was, without the intention of fighting back, and he sneered, "Your Highness, you're too weak. Maybe you can fight with me 2 years later." Hu Qingshan acted later but arrived earlier. He punched towards Huang Yanqun, and Huang Yanqun was blew away by the wind. Even his palm reached her. Bang! Huang Yanqun crashed through the door and fell on the ground. Huang Yanqun felt that all of her meridians was broken and she lost all her strength. With blood on the corner of her mouth, she turned around and glanced at Hu Qingshan. How could he be so powerful? Huang Yanqun had never suffered such a disastrous defeat before when facing a young warrior. Although Hu Qingshan was one of the 7 young masters in the black market, he was actually about 30 years old. So he was not really that young. Huang Yanqun was only 20 herself, so of course he could defeat her. Of course, the higher one's martial cultivation was, the slower his senility speed would be. Hu Qingshan still looked like a 20-year-old young man. Hu Qingshan walked inside and looked at Huang Yanqun on the ground, just a lamb to be slaughtered. He laughed and said, "District Princess Yanqun, you're indeed as arrogant and stubborn as the rumor has. But I like girls like you, because I believe that no matter how haughty you are, when you meet me, you'll become passionate. As for your pride, I can eliminate it with violence. When you get hurt, you won't be arrogant anymore, right? Ha ha. How dare you?" Huang Yanqun gnashed her teeth in anger, trying to get up from the ground. But the moment she made a move, she felt a sense of extreme pain which almost tore her body up. Ugh! Huang Yanqun spat out a mouthful of blood. Her beautiful face became even paler, looking like a piece of white paper. Hu Qingshan sat on a chair and said calmly, "Your Highness, please don't struggle, or you'll hurt yourself even more. You were hit by my heartbreaking palm just now. If you try to transfer your genuine chi with force, you'll face severe consequences. If you're lucky, you'll lose all your cultivation. If not, your meridians will break, your heart will smash, and you'll die miserably. I have been practicing the heartbreaking palm for 5 whole years. Maybe only 3 people in the entire internal academy can block it." A heroic look suddenly appeared on Huang Yanqun's face. She was about to transfer the genuine chi by force and fight desperately with Hu Qingshan. Suddenly, a person appeared in this room without anyone's notice. It was a young man in white with a metal mask on his face. Clash! With the speed of lightning, he slashed towards Hu Qingshan with a broken sword in his hand. They were already very close to each other, and the masked man was extremely fast. The broken sword was at Hu Qingshan's neck in a heartbeat. When the mysterious young man appeared, Hu Qingshan was also slightly astonished. It was almost impossible for someone to get near him without his notice at all. Although Hu Qingshan was shocked, he was quick in reaction. When the sword came, he immediately leaned backward and escaped from that slash dangerously. But he did not lean quite far enough. The cold sword breath made a shallow cut on his neck. The sword breath was so cold that the upper part of Hu Qingshan's body was covered by a sheet of white frost. Zhang Yuochen sighed secretly. He was only that close to killing Hu Qingshan. Although Zhang Yuochen attack had not ended Hu Qingshan, it had provided a diversion. Zhang Yuochen did not stop to think. He grabbed Huang Yanqun with one hand and rushed out of the pavilion. If Zhang Yuochen could not kill a master like Hu Qingshan with an ambush, A second attack would fare no better. With Zhang Yuochen's cultivation at the moment, he could only choose to flee. Hu Qingshan was also startled. The opponent was too fast and he had nearly been killed. It was the first time that he felt death was so close. Besides, the opponent was only a young man. Clap, clap. Hu Qingshan shook off the ice on his body and hummed coldly, "You can't escape." As Zhang Yuochen dashed out of the gate with Huang Yanshan in his arms, Hu Qingshan began to give chase. The older man was faster. Clash. The sword flashed. Hu Qingshan took out his machete and flung it with all of the strength he could muster. The machete curved out past Zhang Yuochen and Huang Yanshan and sped back. It was headed right for Zhang Yuochen. If Zhang Yuochen blocked it, he would be chased up by Hu Qingshan. If Zhang Yuochen did not block it, he would lose his head. Zhang Yuochen had to stop and block. With an easy slash, he poked the machete away. Boom! The force on the machete was still powerful. Zhang Yuochen's arm tingled from the shock, so he stepped a bit backward. Now, he finally realized why Zuo Sheng would be killed with only one slash. Common people could never stand the power on the machete. What was more, the machete didn't fly in a straight line. Rather, no one could predict its direction. If Zhang Yuochen had not learned the heart-integrated sword technique, he would never have been able to defend the machete either. Other warriors in the Earth realm might be killed without even seeing the machete's flight path. Zhang Yuochen, you're no match for him. Put me down, and I'll block his path. Only in this way can you survive. Huang Yanshan's voice sounded cold but weak. She stared at Zhang Yuochen coldly with her beautiful eyes. Zhang Yuochen asked, "How did you know it was me?" "Why can't I?" "You're only wearing a mask." "You idiot." Huang Yanshan rolled her eyes and tried to get away from Zhang Yuochen. She wanted to risk her life to fight with Hu Qingshan and earn Zhang Yuochen some time to escape. Huang Yanshan understood that if Zhang Yuochen tried to take her with him, neither of them would escape.